Welcome, everybody. There's nothing more electric than line by line through the CSS profile. You guys are in for a wild ride. Buckle up. We're going to have some other stuff in there too. There's going to be some bigger concepts we're going to talk about. We'll do our very best to make it otherwise. Peggy, if we can make this entertaining even a little bit, kudos to us, I think.
Yeah.
Right? This is not an easy one. So we're going to give it our damnedest.
I'm confident. We're going to do it.
We're going to do it. And Peggy, by the way, I was a little surprised / disappointed that you didn't comment on my sticker in the green room.
Oh, I did see it. I'm very proud of you. You voted. I will never get a sticker because we mail in our ballots here. So I did vote as well.
I had multiple stickers before. I went with my daughter. I brought her to that. So I had a couple on my face and, throughout. So
nice.
We're grooming the next generation of patriots.
Yes, that is very good role modeling.
Trying to walk the walk. Okay, so we got a full house tonight. We do have a lot to cover here. This will be recorded. Thank you. Everybody's going to get a copy of the recording. Just quickly, it's always fun for us. Just tell us where you're at in the country. I'll get us started here. I'm just north of Boston, on the North Shore here in Salem, Mass. I live right across the bridge at the small city of Beverly, Mass. Peggy's out there in Seattle, who as a matter of fact was our first person to chime in here, and it looks like we are as always, Peggy, we're very well.
Yep, we got people all over the place. Very nice.
North Conway, New Hampshire. I was just there this past weekend. What a beautiful town. It is like a Disney World. It looks like almost a Disney World town of like what if what you would picture a little quaint New England mountain village to look like. That's North Conway. It's amazing.
Sammamish. Somebody's from Sammamish. Yay. That's where I used to live. Oh, some people put it in the Q&A here. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Matt Carpenter. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm one of the founders at College Aid Pro, and this is for those of you who've been with us for a while, this is all we do, this is all we know, this is all we talk about, this is all we coach on every single day. And for me, it's been my entire career. Approaching 20 years now. The class 2024 is the 19th class that I've guided through this process. So I've done it quite literally, been on the front lines with thousands of families. This is something that, I'm passionate about. Our team is passionate about. And I know in some capacity, you guys are all passionate about, right? And I think probably overwhelmed, a little anxious, and something that we say internally and externally every day. No kidding, you're anxious. It's your kids and your money. And this whole thing is just a lot. So we're just hoping to provide some transparency, some clarity, kind of be a source of truth, especially for families going through this for the first time, especially for families that have some complexities going on in their situation. And I see a couple of people are saying they can't hear, but I know I can hear you, Peggy, and you can hear me, and I think others can hear. So I think that's
yeah, I just see one can't hear. Maybe go back, log out and log back in. That'll probably fix it.
Everybody else is hearing us. I think a couple people even laughed at my jokes already, Peggy. But Peggy, for those of you that are seeing her for the first time, this is the fairy godmother of financial aid in the flesh. In addition to just crushing this at the professional level for an awful long time, she's lived it and breathed it with her twins that she put through college too. So I think she knows a little bit about what some of you guys are feeling right now.
Yep, I do. And you'll get through it. Lots of deep breaths. So I've been doing this not as long as my buddy here. I was a financial advisor, financial planner, and then started learning about this through my kids, not the saving for college, but how this whole thing works. And I was just blown away at how crazy complicated it was. So over a decade ago, I started my own business, or started doing this, and then started my own business. And then I joined CAP a couple of years ago. Honestly, I was kind of lonely doing it by myself and wanted to be around smart people to throw ideas off them. And it was just good timing for me to join a team again. So this is what gets me out of bed every day, just like Matt said. So New Providence, New Jersey, that's where I grew up. I see one in there. Nice. made my day. Sorry.
No, you're all right, Peggy. Let
I
it go.
miss MP big time. Love going back to eat. Okay,
You know,
sorry.
sorry, Peggy. Know what I forgot for from a housekeeping standpoint, please put the questions in the Q&A, guys. A couple just notes on that front, the Q&A specifically. Number one, we're overmatched tonight. We're not going to be able to get to every question. We're going to do our best, but just with the amount of you guys and two of us, unfortunately, we won't get to every question. The other thing is here, especially on the CSS profile, the FAFSA, any specific questions we're not going to be able to address just because we always need more context, right? So it'd be a little bit reckless of us to talk about how to value your business or what to put on this line or you know who to have be the custodial parent that files the CSS. So just bear with us there. We'll talk about how you can interface with us if we don't have all your questions answered tonight before we cut out you know at the top of the hour here. So sorry, Becky, forgot to mention that. So you can kick us off.
All right, here we go. So as I think we said we were College Aid Pro, I don't even know, but we are College Aid Pro, and this truly is our mission to end the student debt crisis by empowering you to shop smarter for college. And how that happens is by you getting educated, you understanding how this process works. And so I know this isn't the most sexy part of this process, and we joke about it, but it's a very important part of the process, getting these forms filed by deadlines and doing it correctly. So kudos for being on. There we are. Just a little disclaimer. Basically, we're going to guide you. We're going to show you some of the pages of the form, give you our thoughts. Ultimately, these are your forms, just like your tax return. And you're supposed to fill them out to the best of your ability, just like a lot of other forms that you sign. So some of you might be showing up here kind of with a lot of angst, maybe a long day. Oh, I got to think about numbers and talk about forms. So just take a minute, take a deep breath. I'm a whale person, so I'm trying to relax you all with this beautiful fluke that you're looking at. And just realize when you're doing these forms, you can take breaks, you can save, you can come back the next day as long as you don't have a deadline looming, and you can fix mistakes. Of course, you don't want to make mistakes, but my point is it's not the end of the world. If even tonight, if you've already submitted and you realize you made some mistakes, you can still go back in and we can guide you to do that correctly, can talk to you one-on-one to do that. So don't worry about it. And just like this whole process, you just have to take a lot of deep breaths. Sometimes you do it with your kids. Matt even has to do it with his young one. We all have to take deep breaths, but when you're doing forms, it's just big time needed. So I will turn it back to you, Matt.
Yeah, and if you can, Peggy, just put the link in the
Sure.
chat here. So you guys all got an email at some point today, I think maybe this morning or around lunchtime, depending where coast you're on, encouraging you to create your MyCap accounts. I see most of you already did, which is awesome. Hopefully you're getting a lot of value out of there. Obviously, tonight is really CSS profile focused, but this is one piece in the grander scheme of this whole thing, right? So, within your platform here, you're going to be able to find out, which I'll go into in a minute, exactly how much financial aid or scholarships you're going to get at the colleges that you're applying to or thinking about applying to. You're going to have a private scholarship database to every school in the country, or to every private scholarship in the country, rather, among other things, right? So I won't bore you with all of it, but if you haven't already, we're biased here, but it's the best free resource you're going to find out there anywhere. So again, let us kind of start high level. I want to zoom out just for those of you that are just showing up or are brand new to this whole thing and are just starting to get engaged now. For some of you that aren't, this might be a little redundant, but you can't hear some of this stuff enough times. But at its highest level, what is financial aid, right? Financial aid is a discount from the sticker price. We're not paying the full rack rate of the cost of attendance at a college. That means we're getting some type of financial aid. And there's three broad buckets. Our focus is on the first two because that's free money, right? That's money right off the top that we are not having to pay back, that our kids are not having to pay back. The first type of financial aid on the left here, that's need-based grants. Okay, this is free money that's awarded based on our family's financial profile. right? Or the student's financial profile. And those profiles really that we'll get into here is specifically the CSS profile, the FAFSA, and when it's relevant, the college's own institutional application. So, based on the information we put on there, that's going to dictate whether or not we're eligible for need-based grants, along with how generous or not these particular colleges are in terms of awarding need-based financial aid. Merit-based scholarships in some ways is the opposite end of the spectrum because they're not looking at our family's financial situation at all. They're just looking at our student and their credentials. And hopefully they're saying, and a lot of college admissions counselors are doing this right now. They're getting your kids kind of overall resume, right? This whole package. And they're saying, this is a great kid. We would love them to come to our school. We want to give them a financial incentive to come here. That's a merit-based scholarship, right? The last type of financial aid we're less focused on, more of a distraction, right? Not that there's not a place for it, there is, but self-help is essentially a sexy term for loans, right? This is financial aid, quote unquote financial aid that these colleges are going to give us, but we're going to have to pay it back someday and typically with interest. So obviously the lesser of the three buckets in terms of general financial aid types. You can go ahead to the next one. Thank you, Peggy. Okay, so something that you're going to hear us say all the time, and for those of you again that are groupies here, Peggy, I've already seen some of our groupies here, right, that are on that don't miss. By the way, my parents, I know they're on. They told me they. So.
Hi,
But that is something that we say every single day is that every college is different. Every scenario is unique, right? Every student is unique. So with that, it adds to the confusion. So anytime there's a universal rule, we want to get comfortable with that. And the need-based financial aid calculation is universal, right? Obviously, there are differences at each institution, but this is the starting point for each institution. And that is the cost of attendance or the sticker price minus the SAI, that dollar amount that's going to get assigned to your family based on what you put on the FAFSA and the CSS profile, right? If that dollar amount is lower than the sticker price, lower than the cost of attendance at a college, the dollar difference between those two figures is your eligibility or potential eligibility for need-based financial aid. So if the school costs $90 and your SAI is $30, you're eligible for up to $60,000 of need-based financial aid. How much of that you actually get? Well, that varies significantly based on which school we're talking about, which is a perfect segue into kind of getting into the nitty-gritty here. And Peggy, if I could share for a hot minute, please.
Sure.
So this is, again, I know most of you already have this set up here, so we can do just kind of make sure that you know that what you're looking at. And for those of you that have just created your accounts, that's great. But what you'll see staring you front and center is your family's SAIs. This is the number you're going to see when you hit submit on the FAFSA. When you submit the CSS profile, it doesn't give you a dollar amount in terms of your SAI. And oftentimes, or one of the reasons for this is that there's a range, okay? Because there's a whole bunch of different rules at schools that use this institutional methodology to come up with what they think you can pay per year for college. And that's really what this is, okay? Your SAI. A lot of these schools consider home equity to be fair game. A lot of these schools, if you're a split household, divorced or separated families, they consider both households, right? Whereas federal SAI schools, they don't look at home equity. They only look at one household, whoever completes the FAFSA, to determine need-based financial aid eligibility. That's more than you need to know. What I want you guys focused on is what you're actually going to pay at a given college. Whatever colleges you guys are applying to, you put them into the platform, we're going to tell you how much you're going to get. Are you going to get financial aid? Are you going to get scholarships, right? So that's, and again, the CSS profile is going to be determine this number or this range for you guys. So especially if you're a homeowner, if you're a business owner, if you're a split household family, all of those variables are going to come into play here and be the foundation, right, for determining your eligibility for need-based financial aid or lack thereof. And if you're not eligible for need-based financial aid, you're still going to be able to find out which colleges are going to give you scholarships here, how much, etc. But let's
All right, let me
Yeah,
reshare here. All right, get rid of all my Zoom stuff out of the way. Oh, you're
okay,
still up, buddy. I always forget. I always think I'm on.
I'm almost done now. It's your show in just a couple minutes here.
You
Um,
take your time.
and again, before, oh, there's Donna Carpenter from Ipswich, Mass. I see her. Um, but before we get into the CSS profile itself, again, let's kind of talk about this overall financial aid process. Something that you have to keep in mind that I think is, again, adds to the confusion and overwhelm of this process. Every school is different. So if you're applying to 10 different schools, you have to look at them like 10 different businesses that each have their own way of doing business, right? We have to assume that every single one of them are going to require the FAFSA, because with so few exceptions, it's not even worth talking about. Every school is going to require the FAFSA. But then some of them, in addition to the FAFSA, they want the CSS profile. Some of them have their own institutional form in addition to, or like a Princeton in lieu of, the CSS profile. And they all have different deadlines. And usually, or it is very common that those deadlines do not correlate with the admissions deadlines. So it's just a whole nother thing that you got to keep track of. And the onus is on you, because you cannot rely on the colleges to communicate this home. And oftentimes any communication will only go to the student. So yeah, you kind of have to be all over the student as well. If they're not like completely engaged, they have to be, unfortunately. They're kind of, fair or not, they're treated like adults in this situation. So they have to be all over this as well, because again, sometimes these really critical financial emails will get sent just to the student. Okay. And the other thing here is you can't miss deadlines, guys. Do not give these colleges any excuses to give you less money, because in most cases they will. So do not miss deadlines. So those are kind of some overarching themes here. Just to put a bug in your ear about the FAFSA, you can't access the FAFSA yet. Okay, so if you've already completed a FAFSA as a class 2024 family, you did last year's. Okay, the FAFSA is not accessible yet. It won't be accessible. The most up to date, and Peggy, if you want, you can go to the next slide here. But the most up to date information that is public facing is that the FAFSA will be accessible in December. Okay, now we're hearing that is in doubt. Okay, but as far as anyone knows, December is the earliest anybody's going to be able to access this. Again, we have a pulse on it. We're all over it every day. So we will share that with our community once that becomes official. Right now, there is nothing we can do outside of creating what's called our FSA ID. The student and each parent is going to need to create an FSA ID. We have the link right here. That's basically your username and password for any type of account that you might create online. This is no different. You're going to need to create that. You might as well create that now. Check that box and be done with it. But without further ado, Peggy, let's talk about what everyone came to talk about here, and that's the CSS profile.
All right, so here we go. So CSS profile second form that you will be submitting with the FAFSA. Matt just talked about that. It's not live yet, but you will be submitting the FAFSA. This is not in lieu of it. Mostly private schools require this. There's Michigan, UNC, Chapel Hill, UVA, William and Mary, publics that require the CSS, but for the most part, they're private schools. Some key differences: they're going to ask for the home equity for the home that you live in. That's your primary home. So your market value minus your mortgage. I've already seen some questions about how do I value my home. There's different ways to do it. And, there's not a blanket answer, because for some people, they can use a calculator and that's higher than Zillow. So that's really a family specific thing to talk about, but you don't want to overvalue your home, but you want to be honest, right? My kind of 3 commandments here are: be honest, don't overestimate, and don't overshare. So those are kind of the overarching themes when it comes to financial aid forms. Divorced and separated families, you're both going to be sending CSS profiles. The custodial parent's going to send it with the student, and the non-custodial parent is going, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes in the slides, because that definition has changed. Non-custodial parents going to send their own. There'll be privacy. They both come into College Board, and the colleges will see both. Most colleges look at both of the parents, then not all of them. So that's a planning opportunity for families. Could be huge if your child looks at some schools that don't look at the non-custodial parent. If you're a business owner, huge planning opportunities, very big differences there. Your business, no matter size, number of employees, there used to be an exclusion on the FAFSA side, no longer there. So that's a major planning opportunity where you want some guidance, some one-on-one guidance. And just it's kind of nice that the CSS is first, because once you finish this and the FAFSA shows up, now we haven't seen it, and there's a little bit of complexity to actually get it submitted between the parents and the student, but it is a lot shorter. You're going to be moving money from the IRS, moving data, sorry, not money, moving data from the IRS. So shouldn't be as complicated. So you're starting with the harder one. So that's probably good. Start with the hard one, get it out of the way. So I'm going to show you how to get into this form. That's the first thing that I want to show. And then we're going to actually look at screenshots. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to this page, CSS Profile.collegeboard.org. You want to sign in to the fall 24-25 CSS Profile. Now you're going to sign in with your child's College Board ID. This is their form. Keep that in mind. The FAFSA is their form. I know you're probably a big part of getting it done, but that's how the colleges view it. And they really shouldn't talk to you unless your child is there authorizing it. So just keep that in mind. You're not the student, right? Obviously. So it's their form. You log in with their ID. I think that was even in the questions that I saw quickly when I was going through. So once you log in, you're going to be on your dashboard, and it looks like this. So they're going to assign you an ID. You make sure you're in the right academic year, 24-25. I've obviously started the application because I want to show you what it looks like. So you can, like I said earlier, you can continue app and go back in. This family fee waiver, I'll talk about that in a minute. So you might not see that. And then any schools you've entered, you're going to see here. If you submit, it'll get submitted to those schools. You can always go back in and send it to more schools. Okay. There's a cost to send it to the school. So College Board is delighted if you send it to a bunch of schools, because you're going to pay unless your income is below a certain level. If you are divorced or separated, you're going to see this section because they want to know the non-custodial parents' information. This is important to share because without it, you're not going to have a complete set of forms at a lot of the colleges, and they're not going to be able to produce a financial aid award letter. So that's what you're waiting for, to see what the colleges are giving you. So it's important to share that. If you're not divorced, you're not going to see it, right? All right, so that's your dashboard. And then let me click into the application. I'm not going to navigate from here because there would be a lot of save and continues, and we'd be sitting here watching, go through a lot of pages that you can definitely do on your own. But as you complete these sections, it'll look like this. I've done the whole form. You can, as you see, edit answers is here. So you can always go back in and look at the questions and put a 0 and jot down on your paper that you need to go back to it. And then at the end, you should review your application. And I always tell people, if you're not close to a deadline, take a break. Take a break till later in the day, or go have an evening and come back the next day, because your eyes aren't as tired, you're not used to looking at it, and you'll probably catch something more likely than, if you're just cramming it in after doing the form for an hour plus. So that's my recommendation there. So there's a visual, just so if you haven't been in there, at least you know what you're going to be seeing. And the only way to navigate through those modules or chapters, if you will, is to just click through them. That's a change they made, in my opinion, not for the better, but it is what it is. Okay, so let me go back into the deck. All right, so now let's, no, that's not the deck, sorry. Now let's actually look at some of the CSS. So you are going to be adding all your child's schools in there. So just a little tip. When you're searching, if you type the word university, at least every time I've done it last year and this year, you just get that dreaded little circle that goes round and round and round, and it doesn't go anywhere. So just type the name of the school. Don't type the word university. I don't know why, but type Tufts, type Loyola, Harvard, whatever it is. If the school doesn't come up, that means it doesn't require the form. So you're not going to pay and send it to schools that don't require it. That just isn't a mistake you can make, because it won't come up. Okay. I mentioned this before on the dashboard. It said you have a fee waiver. So the CSS costs money, FAFSA is free, but the first school is $25 because there's a registration fee, and all the subsequent schools are $16 each. So at the end, you'll pay. But if you click, if any of these are applicable when you get to this question on the form, or your adjusted gross income is less than 100,000, the next page will give you this pop-up saying, based on the information, you have a fee waiver, which is great. This was a wonderful change they made last year. When you get to the end, it'll list all the colleges, but it'll say 0. So you won't have to make payment, which is a nice little perk if that's applicable to you. So this page, I want to point out, this is the parent details page. So they ask for your social security number. You notice up here, and I'm going to point it out on the next slide, it says required up here for the parent's birthday. You got to put it in. It's required, right? It's not going to let you go to the next page if you don't put it. But here, they don't require it. So our advice is, don't put it in, right? You're going to upload tax returns and all that stuff to them. You're going to be required to do that. But in this day of so much identity theft and everybody getting hacked, I wouldn't share that information unless it was absolutely needed. For the student, it's used by some colleges to match up documents. So still your call, but that one, we've had examples with some of the families we work with where they say we didn't get your CSS when it had been submitted because they were trying to track it with social security number and they didn't have it. So that's
the only commentary I'd layer on there, and really just set a peg, was just, if you decide, hey, we're not comfortable putting our social security number on, just kind of like make a mental note of that. And I might be proactive in contacting each of the schools that you send the CSS profile to after, to make sure that they got it right. Because, for example, Boston University here, pretty popular school, they track it by the student's social security number still. So every year, at this certain week, we'll get this like panicked emails from our clients that are going, BU saying they don't have the CSS profile. Now, obviously we have it on file and all that, and it's no problem. We can prove it was submitted before the deadline, but just keep that in mind, and you might want to be proactive, so you don't have to, hit the panic button. But yeah, anyways, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Question at the bottom. They're at, again, this is parents, highest level of education. My opinion, it's not required. Don't share, right? Because they're going to make certain assumptions based on the level of your education, and they might not be assumptions that help you with financial aid. Okay, required versus not required. I've already touched on this. If the question is required, it's going to say it right there in parentheses. So, it's your call if you're going to answer required questions or not. It's not totally cut and dry, because we typically say, hey, if it's not required, you don't need to answer it. But sometimes it is advantageous to answer it. And that's on a case-by-case basis. It's not something that Matt and I consider and tell you, never, ever for any family answer a given question. It really depends. And that's where guidance is super important from a professional, from our team of experts. The second screenshot I have here, you notice not required, and you can hit yes or no. You can hit the box. If you hit one of the boxes, then you've got to answer it. So make sure, if you decide, hey, I'm not going to answer this, don't click no, because you can't unclick no. All you can do is toggle between the two. So just keep that in mind. If you do hit it and you didn't want to answer it, it is what it is, and just answer it honestly and move on. Don't get stressed about it. Okay, here's some required questions, and I did see some questions in the Q&A around the parent earnings, but federal income tax. Always click on this little caret if you're not sure what to do, right? They give you hints. It's very clear here. Put line 22 of your taxes. Put line 22. Don't say, oh, I know better. Line 24 is bigger and that's taxes too. Follow the instructions. Just do what they say. Put it down, not hard, right? When it comes to what you earn. For a lot of people, it's very straightforward. It's your wages, but it says here, tips, commissions, W-2 or any other earnings. That doesn't mean dividends and interest, but any earnings. People were writing, they have a Schedule C. That's part of your earnings. That needs to be included there. All right, so I've got some obvious stars on this slide, and I'm putting them here because I want to point out there are FAFSA changes. And somebody wrote in and said, hey, are you going to be doing a webinar on that? We have, and I'm pretty sure we'll do it again before the FAFSA goes live, all about the changes. But here's some examples of FAFSA changes that the CSS profile has not adopted. They are an institutional SAI that you saw Matt showed you is getting calculated from these forms. They don't have to follow the federal mandate to give out their endowment money. That's called institutional aid. That's their money. They can come up with their own methodologies, and they do. And the CSS profile schools are different. They're different the way they handle home equity in the home you live in, like I talked about earlier, from not including it at all to including all of it and everything in between, right? So this is not shocking to Matt or myself that they are not following suit on a lot of these. One of the big ones is saving for retirement pre-tax through a 401k, 403b. It shows up on your W-2. They are asking about it. They're not asking just because they're curious. They're asking because they're going to include it. They're going to add that back in as your income. Not the case with the FAFSA. If you have an HSA, anything that's pre-tax that's voluntary, they're going to ask about it because you could decide not to save for retirement. I'm a financial planner by background. I wouldn't agree with that, but that's their thinking. So just because the FAFSA is a certain way doesn't mean the CSS is. And sometimes it might be better on the CSS and sometimes not. So alimony, they're going to ask for that. If you have any perks, this is pretty common for people overseas, clergy, they get housing, military. They want to know the value of all that. You're not taxed on it by Uncle Sam, but they want to know that stuff. So that's different than the FAFSA. Also, other untaxed income. That's a financial aid concept that you've probably heard us talk about on our other webinars if you've followed us here, but like workman's comp, untaxed disability, money provided from other sources. These are all untaxed sources that they want to know about. You can appeal, but it's a required question and they're asking, so it's important to share. Look at all this information they're giving you though, so definitely click on their little hint boxes. Okay, so now we're into, you might be looking at this saying, what the heck, Peg? Why are they asking about 2023? This should all be about 2022. Well, it is. All the tax return questions are about that base year, the year that matters. If you have a class of 2024, it's all about 22. But the CSS for years has asked about, they're asking you to project forward. So as I have on the slide here, like I said earlier, you want to be honest, but definitely don't overestimate. So if you don't know if you're going to get a bonus at the end of this year, assume you're not, right? Put in what is the minimum you're going to make that you know for sure. You're being honest, but don't overestimate. They're not putting this in the formula, but it's all about the impression that they form about your family. And so you want to, again, be honest, don't overestimate. These are the same items that you're reporting for 2022. They're just asking you to report it for 2023 right now, you know, that we're almost done with. And then same thing for 2024. And this one in the middle here, it's required. If you're expecting some sort of change, you got to answer this question because it is required. Okay. All right, that's that. Now let's look at asking about, so MJ in my sample here, that's the mom, right? So this question isn't required, so you don't need to answer it. If you're not going to sleep at night without clicking a box, then go for it. Do whatever you're comfortable with. Same thing here. What retirement plans? You know, this is it's like nice to know, but they don't really need to know this to give you a financial aid award. Then this question over on the far right, again, you're probably scratching your head. Why are they asking about retirement? Because retirement accounts are not included in the equation, which they are not as an asset. It is what it is. They are asking this and it's required. You might not see this pop up if you don't make pre-tax retirement contributions. So when that question came up, you put 0, then this won't come up. But otherwise, everybody else is going to see it. It is what it is. If you don't have a high balance in your retirement accounts, it could actually help you, because then they're going to look at your age and they're going to say, mom and dad aren't that prepared. Maybe they'll be more generous. That's a maybe. That's a maybe. You never know, right? So divorced and separated families. So I touched on this. This is one of the areas where they are aligned with the FAFSA. They pretty much have to be, because you couldn't have, it would just be it would get even crazier than it is if they didn't align. So the definition of the custodial parent, that's the parent that submits the CSS profile. The other parent, remember, does the non-custodial CSS, is the parent that provides the most financial support. It doesn't mean if you're receiving child support, it's definitely that person. This is another planning opportunity. This is another place where you should probably get some guidance if you're scratching your head, like, who should this be? And people will come to us and say, we're 50-50. That's awesome. Don't be 50-50. The parent that is best to submit a form could be the custodial parent. Spend a little more on soccer or violin or whatever. You're being honest and you're following the rules. So keep that in mind. So that if you have older kids, you've got to get rid of the old definition in your mind of where the child slept the most nights. It's the parent that provides the most financial support, and it's a year look back from when you're submitting the form. That's why there's gray area, there's time to be honest and strategize here, because it's not last tax year, which obviously would be done. You wouldn't have any options there.
And for this one, Peggy, as we always do, we're getting a ton of questions. Who should I list as, who should be the parent to complete the FAFSA? Who should be especially with this new rule change that we just talked about? Who should complete the CSS profile versus the non-custodial profile? We can't answer that questions without having more context, right? Again, before we end tonight, 20 minutes from now, I can talk about how you can interface with us in a one-on-one setting where we can give firm recommendations. Obviously, tons of folks are reaching out to us on this exact matter, but we just can't do it right here. It's not because we don't want to or wish we couldn't. It'd just be reckless without having more context. And Peggy, remind me, are you going to talk about, because we're getting a bunch of these as we always do too, when non-custodial parents are not accessible or not cooperating, and what that process looks like?
Yeah, I can talk about that right now. There is a waiver that you can Google. You Google it, you'll be on College Board. You can download the waiver and you can submit that. Unfortunately, you have to submit it to each college. And what they're going to ask some questions, and why can't the non-custodial provide this? And you're going to send it to each college, and then they will assess if they're going to waive that requirement. If they don't waive it and they require that information, they cannot put together a financial aid package. Now, if it's just my ex doesn't want to deal with this, that's not going to work, right? But we've had a lot of, Matt and I, through the years, a lot of situations where it's very legitimate. There's emotional issues for the child to interface with that parent. The parent's off the grid, the parent's in jail, whatever it happens to be. So there are some legitimate reasons to do that, but that's what you're going to need to do. And then it's case by case basis. The college is going to decide, and you'll be interfacing with them on that. So that's how that works. Few more screenshots here for divorced and separated families. Pretty straightforward. They ask for the year you're separated. Year of divorce isn't required because you might not be divorced. You notice here, Bill is the non-custodial parent. So this is required. This is where I would recommend that you don't disclose that. You write in unknown, because even if you're best friends, you never know. Your ex is going to submit this. I would not speak for your ex. That's our advice. especially over here, how much is your ex going to contribute? I just wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Let them share. They're going to be asked that question. Let them share, right? Because you might overestimate, and then that doesn't help your child, and then your ex might be mad because you overestimated. So just don't even go there, right? Let them answer that question. In a lot of cases, you might not even know. So then you can say 0 because you don't know and it's required. So that's how we recommend you handle that. There's child support questions, pretty straightforward. Again, all required, just answer them. Housing, they're going to ask all these questions about the market value. Again, I'm sure Matt's seeing questions about, how do I value my house? Should it be this? Like I said earlier, it really depends on your family. We don't want to say, this is how you do it, and then that's actually overvaluing for your family, whereas a certain calculator, a certain strategy and method would be very advantageous for somebody living in another part of the country, for example. But, make sure you click on these drop downs. You're going to be putting in the market value, your mortgage. So you want to look that up. You don't want to put a lower mortgage than you have. You want to be accurately representing your mortgage, and your monthly payment, which is required as well. Okay, assets. So they're going to ask about student assets, same sort of questions. Cash, checking, savings, pretty straightforward. They tell you the investments. We've talked about this around SAI. It's your non-retirement assets. It can literally be the day you hit submit. So if the market tumbles, go look at your portfolio, right? The numbers are down, put that number in there. That's more beneficial, because that's how the rules read. They ask you if you have other real estate, investments, business. These are all required. So you got to say yes or no there. And then as you go through, they're gonna potentially ask other questions, and it's up to you if they're not required, if you want to answer them. This question over here on the left is, I've never, and I think Matt will probably say this too, chime in if I'm wrong here, buddy, but never had a parent say yes to this. And actually some of this information in here isn't even accurate. I'm not going to get into it, but I scratched my head with this one because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So for most families, that's going to be no. Student assets, like I said, many of the same questions that they do ask. Is the student a beneficiary of a trust? These questions are required, but they do get a little bit in the weeds here. They ask who established it and what type of trust. And so that's not a bad thing. That's an appeal item. If you're disclosing a trust that you don't think, isn't accessible or whatever, that you can always appeal. But I just heads up, you're going to see that question if your child is a beneficiary of a grandparent trust or a parent trust, whatever it happens to be. This is the number one question that every parent pretty much has when they look at the CSS, asking how much you can contribute for 1 year. Again, this is another example of there isn't a blanket answer here. It really depends on the family, depends on your SAIs, it depends on what you have in savings. You got to answer this. So the answer, it can hurt you, and it's not going to help you. Whatever you put here, they're asking, right? So you've got to put an answer, but this is where you're going to want some counseling as well, because you definitely don't want to overestimate this answer, because it could hurt you. It could change how much need-based aid you get. So you want to make sure you're doing that question correctly. This is also part of the student resources. Same thing, it's pretty straightforward. If your employer has a benefit, you're going to get it, then go ahead and put it down. If it's not for sure, then I would put 0. Same thing with outside help. If it's not guaranteed, and you don't know for sure exactly how much somebody's going to help, then put 0. If you do know, then you know. And it's a required question. There's a section right at the end before supplemental questions, special circumstances. So up to you what you put here. We tend to like to have our clients be able to appeal on special circumstances as opposed to laying it all out on the table. That's how we provide guidance. You're going to need some guidance on how to do that, how to appeal effectively. But again, if that's going to keep you up at night, that you mark none when you wanted to spill your guts, it's your form. That's just how we counsel to do it. At the end, colleges can pick extra questions. You might have none, because you might have had, your child might have schools that don't choose to have supplemental questions. But if they do, don't be surprised. If they're not required, you can choose if you're going to answer them or not. So the colleges will have extra questions. Here's some examples that Harvard had on one of them. And then you get to the end, you want to review your application. Like I said, make sure that you're good to go. And then you're going to see all the charges. You're going to put in your credit card, and then you're going to hit submit. You're done with the CSS profile. There's going to be more steps in the process, but this is what the dashboard is going to look like after you've submitted it. You will be able to correct it, like I said at the beginning. Last year was only one time. I haven't gone through and clicked on all that yet, but you can save a copy. Would be nice if you could download a PDF to review it, but that's not how they have it set up. They're asking you to take a survey, so if you feel like doing that, you can. If it was a good experience or whatever. And then you're always going to see your schools, because you could always add a school. Like I said, IDoc. If you haven't heard of that, that's another part of College Board that a lot of schools will leverage them to upload documents. You're going to have to upload tax returns, W-2s, all that fun stuff for them to look over your application. That's a vital part of the process. You don't have to do it the night you hit submit. You have plenty of time to do it. Some colleges will reach out through your child's portal to get that done. So not all schools use IDoc, but that's what your dashboard is going to look like after you hit submit. Okay. Real quick, this is just a summary. Don't feel obligated to answer questions that aren't required. Don't overvalue your home. Make sure you understand what makes the most sense for your family. Make sure 529 accounts that you own are an asset of yours, not your child's. Don't overestimate how much you can pay, like I talked about. Don't overestimate future earnings. You see there's a pattern here of don't overestimate. And then, like Matt said, deadlines are a big deal if you're eligible for need-based aid. So if you've missed a deadline, take a deep breath, get it in ASAP. Don't lose sleep, but keep track of those deadlines. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Okay. So I started with a nice whale picture. So this is my puppy dog, Ashling. So as I'm going to turn this back over to Matt, I don't know how you could be stressed looking at my baby here.
Takes everything away.
Thank you for the emojis. But, because I know this process is stressful. So hopefully even seeing some of these screenshots gives you some visibility into this. But you know what? If this is just like, you're like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. I don't want to deal with this. I'm not a numbers person. Then we're here to support you. And so I'm going to let Matt talk about how we can do that in the process, because we're happy to step in. Thank you for all your heart emojis. I love it.
Yeah, and I think, or at least we like to think, that we got something for everybody, kind of regardless of where you're at, right? And I'll talk about this specifically in a second here, but as we promised, guys, it gives us no pleasure, and I know a lot of you guys are frustrated with that we're not able to get to every question, but and maybe some of you weren't here at the top when I kind of promised we're not going to be able to get to every question. We're going to do our best. We can't answer like case specific questions. Just without having more context, we wouldn't be doing our jobs.
Well, and actually, I would hope that most of you are not frustrated. I would hope that most of you are in the spot of like, this is awesome. Matt and Peg spend an hour. It's Matt's evening. I'm moving into dinner hour, but we're giving you our time. We're trying to give you a lot of value. We just can't get to all the questions, and I hope that you think about it that way instead of being frustrated. So,
there you go. That's the spirit, Peggy. So look, and something that, again, for those of you guys that know us, we say this every time, and this is kind of Peggy's line that I steal because I think it's true. We've only done our jobs if you do something, you continue to engage with us in some capacity. And if you're someone that is just kind of like, you feel like you're all over this, like, look, I've completed the CSS profile, I submitted it, or it's almost done, or whatever. I still feel incredibly strongly that you're going to get a lot of value if you just book an hour with one of us, right? And we've got a tonight only 20% discount coupon code that, you know, it'll expire by midnight. This is just for our live audience, that we'll get some type of coupon out for those that weren't able to make it live tomorrow. It's not going to be 20%, and you guys will see that, but you can book an hour with us, and you can do that. Let me just show you how quickly within your MyCap accounts, right? Just go up to the top here, select the upgrade button. And then once you do that, okay, once you select that upgrade button, choose the Premium Plus Expert package, and then use this coupon code here. And I'm sure Peggy can put it in the chat for you. Use this coupon code tonight, and then you can use that. You can use that hour whenever you want at any point over the next year. So we can look at the CSS profile, see if you made any mistakes. Usually we can find some things that are going to make a difference on what you're going to receive. Before you hit submit, let us look at it, okay? If you want the next level up, we can do the CSS profile for you. We can do the FAFSA for you. Okay, we will make sure, okay, we'll manually complete those forms, make sure that they're done as strategically as possible. We will advise, here's what parent should be the, you know, custodial versus non-custodial. Here's who should do the FAFSA and the CSS profile versus the non-custodial profile in split household families. So we'll do those forms for you, and you will get 2 meetings with one of our experts, right? Again, same thing. That's usually we charge $1,500 or $14.99. If you opt in tonight, you get the 20% off. It's $1,200. I will tell you, if you have an 11/15 deadline, you have to purchase this tonight. Our Peg's put this link, I think, in the chat, but you have to purchase this tonight in order for us to guarantee that we will have the CSS profile done by 11/15. Even so, we will only be able to do a limited amount of these, but if you have 11/15, sign up tonight. You will get onboarded tomorrow, and we will get working on the form. We'll have it done by the end of this week. You'll have a chance to review it with one of our experts. We'll hit submit together, and you guys are in business. And then again, the same thing will happen once the FAFSA becomes accessible. We do it for you, and then you get to review it with one of our experts, and you're in business. But that one, especially, you have some urgency there. So I think for people that feel like they're in pretty good shape overall in this process, book an hour with us, okay? Or have us at least just do your forms for you. We have a few, I don't know how many, but a couple of our full service packages are Wake Me Up When It's Over package. Now, actually, there's a typo in here that behooves you. This is not $500 off tonight. This is 20% off tonight. So hold on a sec. This is a typo on here. I actually confirmed this, Peggy, with Jared before. So this is just for tonight only. This is, what is this, 39.9 10.2. It's $800 off. So it's $3,200 if you wanted to do our full service tonight. What that includes is you get unlimited access to a one-on-one expert to guide you through this process. That includes completing your FAFSA, completing your CSS profile, making sure that strategically your list is rounded out. Are you applying to competing colleges, right? So when we are involved with that in appeal process, which we will be in this Wake Me Up When It's Over package, but what that means is once you get accepted into, right, we've completed the FAFSA, we completed the CSS profile, we've solidified your list of colleges, we find out where we've been accepted, we get these offers back. We lead the charge to negotiate. We don't use the word negotiate. We are appealing for more financial aid and scholarships. It is something that we are very, very good at, very well versed at. And then finally, once we know exactly where we're going, exactly what's going to cost, we work with you, say, well, how are we going to pay this bill? If you're a family that has resources, it matters if you use your 529 first year, UGMA, your cash flow, or grandparents' contributions. If you're a family that needs to borrow some or all of this, we're going to help you figure out, well, what's the best loan for your family, right? So that is our kind of comprehensive from now until whenever your student moves into their dorm this August. We've got you covered for every single step of the way, unlimited hours, one-on-one with an expert. Again, we'll only sell a handful more of those for the class of 2024. And it's $800 off if you do it tonight, right? But our thing is do something, guys, right? At a minimum, don't overthink it. Nobody likes to think about spending money when they're staring at $90,000 a year in the face. You're going to get a return on the investment here, and however you decide to engage with us. But that's kind of our theme. Just do something. You'll be very happy that you did. And for those hours, you can meet with anyone on our team. You can meet with Peg and myself, but I'm sure neither of us have any availability before 11:15, for example. So just do next available, or if you want to meet with one of us specifically and you're less pressed from a timing standpoint, just know that again, our calendars don't have much there, but you can't go wrong. I mean, we have our team of experts is stacked. Peg and I rely on our team literally every day. We will ask our teammates how to handle this situation, right? You can meet with folks that are currently the directors of financial aid at some of the best schools in the country, or that were directors of financial aid at some of the best schools of the country and now on our team, or lifetime financial planners that have been in this niche space forever. So anybody that you meet with has got to go through me and Peggy's make it through our selection process, right, Peggy? And not everybody makes it through that, right? It's the best of the
Nope,
best.
they do not. They do not.
Yeah. So I don't know, Peggy, if you have any kind of final words of wisdom here.
Yeah, it's just really just stay engaged. If one of these offerings speaks to you, then I've never seen $800 off. So I'm not just saying that to be salesy. I'm actually shocked that Jared signed off on that. So if that's landing for you, I would jump all over that, because I don't think we're going to see that again.
No, the head guy did not sign off on that, as you might expect.
Yeah, but anyways, engage. Most parents, at the very least, need an hour. Honestly, a lot of parents need more than an hour. There's guidance along the way. I know it's hard to think about spending money because you're going to be spending a lot of money soon, but like I said at the beginning, the more educated you are, the more you understand this process, the better you're able to secure thousands and thousands of dollars from colleges. And submitting forms incorrectly is one of the ways that people leave money on the table. They just have no idea. So, we really try and price stuff. We really try and show up so that families that we're landing for everybody to be a part of this process for you. And just, please stay engaged. Please, we're here. We're sharing our time. We're sharing our expertise. We want to help you through this process. So.
Touche. And the other thing is, we got this question a lot. If you've already submitted the CSS profile, it's not too late, right? For the most part, there's nothing that can't be walked back. So again, that's something where you might think about at least booking the hour there to have us walk you through that process and talk about next best steps. But hopefully you didn't ruin everything. Okay. If you're listening to this tonight and oh my God, I made a mistake on the CSS profile, that can be nothing. For the most part, nothing can't be kind of unwound here. So you did not ruin everything. Yeah, and that's it. That's right, Peggy. I mean, look, we're not going anywhere, right? We're going to be here next week doing something similar, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that. Again, we always reward our live crowds. We won't get that big of a break on the full services. Again, that's almost guaranteed here. But yeah, and just remember, if you want us to make sure that we get your CSS profile done by 11:15, you have to sign up tonight. We won't be able to hit that deadline, even in all likelihood, even if it's tomorrow. So yeah, so I think that's it. I think that's it for me, Peggy, unless you got any
Yep. Stay engaged. Have a good night. Yeah, we'll keep showing up. We'll keep showing up in
everybody's
your inbox,
getting the recording tomorrow. Yeah, everybody will get the recording tomorrow. So long as you're registered, you will get the recording tomorrow. If it goes to spam or something like that, they usually do a great job getting that out in the morning, our marketing team. So if you don't have it in your inbox by 12 Eastern time or thereabouts, just write into support@collegeaidpro.com, say I didn't get my recording, and we'll either say resend it or say sit tight for another couple hours or whatever.
Yeah, somebody put in asking if we had offer a package for school application plus financial aid.
Yeah, we do actually. It is so this is what's called our combo package here, right? So if you want just admissions, you can see what that looks like. If you want financial aid plus admissions, you can see what that looks like here. I don't think the coupon code will work for either of those. I think that's full rack rate, but the option is there. You can try the coupon code, but I think it'll only work on the financial aid package. But yeah, just on our website, under our packages and pricing, if you click on our WIGMI when it's over packages, I'll just put this in the chat.
Well, and if a few people have written in, oh, I think you're referencing like an hour, but you might want to do one of the other ones, just reach out to support@collegeaidpro.com and we can help you. If you bought an hour and you're like, no, I'd rather have you help me with the forms, the middle one, yeah, we can make that work, if you haven't used the hour yet. So just keep that in mind.
Yep. Okay, Peggy, thank you. Beautiful job as always. I'll see you out on the battlefield tomorrow.
All right, everybody have a great night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.